Hello YouTube, welcome back. This is part 11 of creating the Sutton Hoo cooking chain. So in this episode we're going to be joining two of the elements to the chain using figure of 8 loops such as this one, which is quite an interesting process to make, and also using some shackles such as seen just below the figure of 8 loop here. So we're going to start by creating the figure of 8 loops, and for those we are using 800mm of 10mm round material. So to start with, we are going to scarf both of the ends of the bars, and then over the bick we are just going to flick those perpendicular to the rest of the bar. I say perpendicular, more of a 45-degree angle. So we do that to both ends of the bar, and then we shall heat up the material in the centre. Now judging the centre by eye, but that's okay because if you get it wrong you can adjust it, and simply bend that in two. And this is basically a big old chain link that we're starting with. So as you can see, the scarves meet up, mostly. So weld the two scarves together. And to weld the top and inside of the link, I'm using my chain maker's stump. So if you don't have one of these, either make one or use the bick on your anvil. It's a bit better than using your bick because as you can see you can rotate the material and it gives you a nice accurate finish. And with it all welded up, just do some adjusting to make sure that it is rounded. So when it's all welded, close up the link. You want a gap of about 1.5 inches between both sides of the link. So again, keep on rounding it. So you end up with something like this. It looks a bit funny because it's lying at an angle on the anvil, but it is parallel. So at that stage you want to take the end and you want to roll it over. Now we're rolling this quite short because it's easier to make these loops bigger than it is to make them smaller. So we're making them deliberately undersized and then we will expand them later. But as you can see, the loop is on the wrong side of the material, and I know that you're about to tell me that. You're about to say, Rowan, you daft sod, the loop's on the wrong side. So let me show you a magic trick using a vise and 2 bits of scrap material. And this took a little bit of thinking before I figured out this technique, because I was going to shape it into a figure of 8 loop and then weld it up. Basically take your bits of scrap, stick them in the loops and just flip it over, and as you can see, magically the loop ends up on the other side of the material. So do a bit of tweaking, get them roughly in the right place. It doesn't matter how deformed they are at the moment because we're going to be dressing them over the bick end, as you can see here. So, and like I said a minute ago, we've made these loops deliberately undersized because it's easier to expand them than it is to shrink them. So with the first one roughed out, we will then flick over the other side. Now I can't do this over the edge of the anvil now because of the first loop. So we're doing it over the bick. And again, make it undersized. And then pop over to your vise. And turn it round. Now I did the welded loop first because it puts less pressure on it. If you do the unwelded loop first and then the welded loop second, it risks putting a lot of pressure on your weld, as I found out when I did the first one. It can pop your weld open if you're not careful. So at that stage I will start pushing that loop down and round it up. Also, now's a good time to make sure that all the parts that need to be parallel are parallel and straight. As you can see, it's starting to come together. What you can also do is you can, using a pair of tongs, squeeze the loops closer together. So, like so. As you can see, it's still quite ugly. Fret not, my friends. Another couple of passes on the bickern and it will be quite round. So I'm not hammering this like a loon. I am literally just shaping the material over the rounded section of the bick. I'm being quite careful. The bick's tapered obviously, so you need to flick your work around every now and then to make sure that you are doing both of the loops evenly. Both of the parallel loops, that is. And as you can see here, I'm just using the bickern to retain the material and I'm pushing the outside of the loops closer together just to get that figure of 8 effect. Then once that's all shaped, I will pop over to a radiused edge of the anvil and I will just close up those loops, get a more rounded effect where they pass through each other. Looks a lot smarter. And just make sure that everything is sitting nice and flat. And here is the first one completed. So the second one, as you can see, the loop ended up a little bit bigger than it should have been. I left that like that, it doesn't bother me too much. But there we go. Now, here was a problem that I spotted in that I should have built the chain on top of the figure of 8 link. There wasn't really any way around this, so what I had to do was cut this chain link and weld it back together. So I did this off camera because it's arc welded back together. If you're going to reproduce this work, make sure you build this chain on the end of the figure of 8 loop. But as you can see, I've done that quite tidily. It's not noticeable at all, so there we go. So onto the shackles. Now the first one I did is a test piece, so you missed out on that one. But basically we're using 500mm of 8mm round stock on the first one, and then the second one will be 400mm of 8mm round stock. So basically it is the same process. We are going to scarf both ends of the bar, flick them over on the bick, flatten them out a little bit, make sure that's close to 45 degrees so you have a pointed weld. Then bend it in the middle, get this as hot or as cool as you like. I just bent it over the bick, check for roundness and then dressed accordingly before closing up the fixed loop. As you can see, this makes the scarves bypass each other. That is not an issue because we're just going to reopen that a little bit. And then put a bit of a bend in there. You want the bend to meet up with the loops of the knotted element. So keep checking the sizing. Make sure your lines are straight as well. Just make sure it's going to fit. And then open up the bar a bit, fit through the first loop, like so. Close it up again. Then you can fit the figure of 8 link. Open it up again. This is quite simple using your tongs, just pull it open. And then thread it onto the knotted element, like so. And at that stage, close it up again and get the scarves matching because we're going to weld this up. Now you could have built the knotted element around the shackle. I decided to not do it that way because I'm a masochist. and I like making life hard for myself. So basically weld that up, dress it on the bick. It is such an awkward shape that I'm not able to use the Chainmaker's Hardy. So I just done this on the bick, then dressed it in. And this is how I joined the knotted element to the chain above, which I did off camera. So with it all welded up and roughly rounded and both arms the right length, I will just dress it to make sure that everything is parallel and matching. So use your bick, use your eye, use your hammer, like so. So now we're going to be putting the composite bar on, and this is a slightly shorter piece because the shackle on this is slightly shorter than the others. The joy of this one is that because of the geometry of the multi-bar piece, I can actually make this pretty much without it actually being fitted. So same steps, scarf it, bend it, weld it. And because there's no chain on this, I can do it over the Chainmaker's Hardy. And just keep testing it for size. Then when you're about there, close it up over the edge of the anvil. Make sure you get these nice loops. Spend a bit of time getting them nice and geometrically attractive. Now the composite piece, you will remember from the video describing the making of that I left the scrolls pointing the wrong way, so I will just now flick them in the correct direction. And I will then cool off the scrolls and bend the arms roughly 90 degrees, so perpendicular to the piece. Now ideally I'd have made these arms a little bit longer and made the scrolls a bit thicker for it to match the original. So at that stage you can fit your shackle through the figure of 8 piece and carefully install the composite element. Then using a hammer, close up your shackle. You can do this cold, the shackle is a little bit warm on this, which is why I'm avoiding handling it. I have enough scars on my hand from doing silly things like that. And just using some nice firm steady blows, just close that up. Like so. And then take a heat in the arm and just bend that down so that there is no way that the shackle can escape. And like I said, ideally these arms would be a little bit longer and the scrolls a little bit fuller. However, it still works and it still looks quite attractive, so there we go. And here it is assembled. Now, to make my life easier, I did actually hang the chain from a hook on a beam. That made the welding of it easier. But this has all come together quite smartly. I quite like these figure of 8 elements. They were a bit of a bugger to get my head round, but once I had figured out the easiest way for me to make them, they came together quite nicely. So I don't actually have any images of the chain, the whole length of the chain so far this week, so you'll have to see that next week. But there we go. So thanks a lot for watching. I do hope you enjoy these videos. Please leave a like. If you'd like to contribute to the creation of these videos, please consider donating on Patreon. Every penny helps towards the creation of these big projects. So here's my current list of Patreon donors. Thanks a lot, guys. You are helping me out quite a lot. And it's quite humbling how many of you there are at the moment, so thank you very much. And I will see you all on the next video next week.